gotta tell you guys one thing. There's another reason why I try not to complain too much about accusations that WWE does things on the fly, and sometimes it looks like they don't know what the hell they're doing, and the reason for that is, it's pretty much the same thing here on the Rasslin Roundup. Welcome once again, people. This is Rowdy Chris Lee Moore, joined once again by the host of the DukeCT Lounge, Charles Thomas, who was incredibly nice enough to tag in and join in on this thing, as both my other two planned hosts, Jeff Gwinnett, and of course my usual tag team partner, John Weber, could not make it. So really, I cannot extend enough gratitude to you, Duke, for being able to jump in at such short notice.
No problem. Hey, if a friend needs me, I'm right here.
And I do appreciate that. Be more beyond words you can't possibly know. For the worst part, I hope your holiday season's been going pretty well for you.
Well, other than my PC is in the shop, but I am still, functioning, still doing everything else. So even though my PC is down, I have a backup, and you know what? None can take me down like that. So I'm still doing the things. I'm still doing my podcast. I'm still doing my review of Impact Bound for Glory, which is hopefully up by the 18th. I'm going to really work hard to get that done, and hopefully get that done. If not the 18th, it will probably be on the 20, like the 20th or 21st. That's
I'm with you. I'm with you right there, because I am struggling right now. I'm trying to just get this done right in between trying to finish up and completely edit and complete the next episode of Rowdy and Friends, which I'm hoping to start releasing to Patreons next week, starting on the 18th. Will hopefully be released publicly on Christmas Day to give all my fans a nice Christmas present in that sense. But I guess we might as well start getting down to business here. And I will say this, Duke. I think that of all my friends in the wrestling community, people who have co-hosted this podcast before, I think this might work out just fine, because I think you might be the one person more than anyone else who could really work for this new segment that I'm looking to present to start up in this edition. We will talk about Clash of Champions later on, but in addition to John's regular segment of how would you book this, which I hope to get back to very soon in a future episode, I want to debut this new segment. I don't have a really good, catchy title for it yet. Something along the lines of, "That's Not How It Used to Be," or something like that. But the main thing is, we're going to get into history here. Because the purpose of this segment is to essentially tear down the nostalgia filter. Because among the things that the IWC smarts do that makes me roll my eyes is, you hear about all the things in wrestling that they can't stand. Bad booking decisions, convoluted finishes that make little sense, title matches not ending with a clean winner, popular wrestlers getting screwed over by backstage politics, But to hear today's fans, you'd think the only wrestling promoter to have committed these egregious acts is Vincent Kennedy McMahon. That wrestling was this pure, perfect sport where everything worked out until VKM came along and ruined everything with his sports entertainment. Well, the purpose of this segment is going to be, I'm going to be hunting down some of the bigger examples of non-Vince McMahon or pre-Vince McMahon wrestling that proves that's not the case. And so if you're ready to get started on this, Duke.
All right, let's do it.
And I will say this, it's become even more apropos than I intended that we're going to be talking about this particular event, this particular match, at this particular time, because, of course, if you haven't been living under a rock, this weekend, we saw the new Star Wars movie. I saw it on Friday morning, catching as early a time as possible. Don't know if my colleague here has seen it as of yet.
I just came back.
Well, we're not here to talk about that, but I'm just saying, it's kind of apropos that we're doing this, because this match that we're going to talk about took place at an event called Wrestling Star Wars. It was, I believe, December 28th, 1982, from the old Reunion Arena here in Dallas. God, is that a building I miss? Where the main event was Ric Flair defending the NWA World Heavyweight Championship against Kerry Von Erich. This, of course, was essentially Jim Crockett Promotions versus World Class Championship Wrestling, which were the two biggest promotions, at least back in the 80s, within the National Wrestling Alliance. I've been trying to study as much as I can over this, and basically this whole purpose is, I'm going to look back at this is a very important match that I'll get into in a moment, but I'm going to just briefly talk about some of the details of the finish of this match and some other things about it. Try to explain that I think if today's fans watched this match today, they'd have a lot to gripe about.
Well, I can see that. Well, I mean, I haven't seen the match myself. I can hear, how can you say anything about it? But the history surrounding it. You have Kerry Von Erich. There's not only probably one of the most prestigious wrestling families of all time.
Absolutely.
And then you have Ric Flair. I mean, again, one of the best to ever, lace up a pair of boots, they would say.
Yeah, we'll get into that. I'll get into more details of that in a moment. But to start off with setting up this match, now the first things first is this was actually a rematch between these two, as they had previously fought just a couple of months prior at Reunion. This was, of course, where the big matches, of course, took place. Usually, of course, most of world-class championship wrestling was at the old Sportatorium on Industrial Boulevard in Dallas. But, of course, they had a couple of... They had essentially their own equivalent of WrestleMania-type pay-per-view shows that took place, of course, at Reunion Arena. Could draw 20,000 there, but essentially back around... October, I believe it was, of 82 was when the first match, it was a 2 out of 3 falls match, and just to set this up, to show automatically, I think you're starting to see how, when you hear how that match finished, and this one we're going to be really talking about finished, you're going to start seeing some parallels, I think, between what happens in WWE more often than not today, because the first fall of this first match ended in a dusty finish. If you're well aware of what that type of finish is.
That would really piss them off.
Yeah,
I can see that right there. In fact, I think that's happened a couple of times. I gotta look this up because this seems like it's not the first time I've seen first falls.
Yeah,
in like this type of situation.
Because basically the first thing that happened was, I think what first was Kerry inadvertently hit the referee, then got Flair in the Von Erich claw, appeared to have him beaten as the backup referee was waiting to signal for the fall, but the bell rang prematurely and the first referee disqualified Kerry for hitting him. Like, it was sometime afterwards. Now, of course, that didn't end the match. That was just the first fall. Kerry won the second fall cleanly with that same Von Erich claw, and then the third fall, ended in a double DQ with both guys going out of it. So yeah. And that's what I think was what started what people started calling Kerry the uncrowned world champion, and that pretty much set up this match on the few days after Christmas 1982. This was a steel cage match, and not only that, there would be 2 referees in the cage: the normal referee David Manning, and a special enforcer in which the man who was picked was none other than Michael Hayes of the Fabulous Freebirds. Now, this is going to be a very important match. I was actually going to bring this up later, but I'll say it now. This match has such historical significance because this was the night of the Freebirds' heel turn. This was what essentially began the long-standing feud between the Freebirds and the Von Erich family in WCCW. So that's one of the reasons why I picked this particular match. What drew me to first watch it, and then when I saw how it ended, got the thinking in place that led me to this segment. So what happened was, not only would Hayes be in the ring as an extra referee, he also decided that he would have standing outside the ring for the match, the cage, was his fellow Freebird member, Terry Gordy, in which Gordy's instructions were to make sure no one escaped the cage. So apparently this was back when there weren't technically escape rules, I guess, in a cage match in the NWA. The whole purpose of the match was to keep people in the ring, for the most part, and keep them from escaping. So I guess that's one thing that Vince McMahon did change in making it you can win by escaping, but that wasn't in the rules on this particular match.
I hate. By the way, if you know me, I don't like that type of rule. I believe, and always, the cage should be. The best way to finish is basically inside the cage, pinfall or submission. That's it. Not escape.
Well, that's essentially I think what the purpose of this match was to be. Like, there must be a pinfall or submission winner in this match. I think that's essentially what they were supposedly setting up. Let's get into exactly what happened in this match. There were a number of instances where, of course, Hayes had to break up guys getting really physical with one another, and it seemed like his temper was starting to build up more and more throughout this match. The turning point essentially came. Kerry seemed to have Flair powerless in the Von Erich Claw, only for Hayes to order it broken up, and he finally rips Kerry off of Flair because Flair supposedly had his foot on the ropes.
Mm-hmm.
Ordering a rope break in a cage match.
Yeah, when they're supposed to be known disqualification.
Yeah. So that's basically what started the chain of events for the most part. And then, when Hayes tried to break up a similar scuffle and begin arguing with Flair, he pretty much lost it, punched out Flair himself, and then Hayes tried to get tried to throw Kerry on top of Flair for the pinfall. Kerry refuses to do so because, he's not going to win a cheap match that way. Like, he's supposed to be this is when he was the absolute pure babyface here. That pretty much caused Hayes to just pretty much quit the match. He walks out of the cage. Kerry runs out to tries to confront him at the edge of the door, and Gordy slams the door in Kerry's head. That gave Flair the opportunity to go for a pinfall, in which case Hayes runs back into the cage, counts to 3, despite 1, Flair now having his head under the ropes, trying to get the pinfall, when Flair had just ordered a rope break earlier, and then Kerry kicked out before the count of 3, which Hayes still counted. Manning waves off the fall. David Manning, the main referee. So, at that point, Manning orders all the Freebirds out of the arena to get all together. But the whole purpose of it, now the match goes on for about another 2 minutes afterwards, but which is supposed to be made clear that the door shot to the head has seriously hurt Kerry Von Erich. And what happens, the final finish of the match comes where Kerry punches out Flair with his roundabout discus punch, as they like to call it, only he then falls to his knees out of I guess, not being able to think clearly, running out of gas, whatnot, and basically what happens is Manning calls for the bell and declares Flair the winner, despite Flair being on his back, because he's declared Kerry being the one unable to continue.
That is honestly looked like to be something out of what Vince Russo would do to make sure everything just completely confusing, and it doesn't make any sense, and it's like, wait, what? It's like it is so full of these type of moving parts that it kills the momentum, it kills the entire thing. That right there is you can't really do that in that type of thing. It destroys the entire flows of matches. It just makes it overly confused, overly overbooked.
And look, if you want to see what I'm talking about, you and any other of my listeners out there, if you have the WWE Network, that match is on there. Just go to the Vault section and then look up matches from WCCW. That's 2 C's in it. And like I said, I believe it's the event that took place on. Just look for the one that said December 28th, 1982. It was, and you should be able to see in full everything that I've talked about. Because you bring this up. Now, that brings up to the first thing. First off, there's already the fact that, you had this incredibly convoluted finish that it happened, 35 years ago, I believe. I mean, that's how, even back then, stuff like that was happening. And guess what? It was happening for the same reasons. Because everyone wants to talk about backstage politics, wrestlers getting screwed over. I mean, let's talk about this. I mean, you remember how especially in the early 2000s, everyone talks about the politics that allowed Triple H to keep being World Heavyweight Champion in WWE? Well, I'm about to, let's say, disillusion and piss off a lot of smarts when I say in the 1980s, Ric Flair was Triple H. Now, I've looked I researched this, that from 1981, like for almost the entire night period of the 1980s, from the day he first won it on September 17th, 1981, until July 7th, 1990, by my count, Ric Flair held the NWA World Heavyweight title for a combined total of 7 years and 276 days. And if you think that you want to say, well, he was the world champion because he was the best wrestler, period. No, it wasn't like that. Not saying he wasn't a great one, but number one reason he became world champion and held the belt for that long was because Jim Crockett, who owned the Carolina territory that Flair was from, had amassed so much political clout within the National Wrestling Alliance that he had basically had the power to want the world champion to come from his territory. And I'm going to say this, at least just what I've seen so far, and I might bring this up later, there might not be few other wrestlers who got screwed over worse than Kerry Von Erich. I mean, I don't know how much you've seen this guy in past video clips of Duke, but this was one of the hottest, most over wrestlers, especially in the NWA, in that time in the early 80s. This guy had the look and charisma and just almost total package that he could have been world champion there. And he was world champion for about 12 days. Because I think there was the screw job in October or so. Then there was this one. I don't know how many other times it happened before then, but they finally let Kerry wear the belt when he beat Ric Flair in May of 1984 at the another poetic irony here, the Parade of Champions event that took place at Texas Stadium in May of 1984. And then he dropped it 12 days later to Flair in an event in Japan. So, I mean, this is why I keep saying this. There is other history of wrestlers getting screwed over by backstage politics.
Well, yeah, it's continue. This is again, people, they're blinded by nostalgia, which, and honestly, it was actually funny enough. The model what the NWA was is the heel chase is the champion while the babyface chases after them. That was where the money was back in the day. And quite honestly, it was a direct opposite what the WWF was. When you have the good guys mainly prevailing. And I think that really, that helps. When you have, for the most part, you have the good guys hold the championships for so long, that was where the money is.
Absolutely, I think
the NWA was like what the babyface doesn't hold the championship long until the next person, wins the champions. Be it like say Ric Flair or someone like Big Van Vader or something like that. It was the villains who held the championship. It was the last final boss, as it were.
Well, now obviously there was some positive fallout from this. Like I said, this was what made the big heel turn for the Fabulous Freebirds and set up the long-standing feud between the Von Erich family and the Freebirds, which did drive WCCW for a good many years. And I think, like I said, it was the territory here in Dallas was probably right up there with the Carolinas for pretty much carrying the NWA throughout the early 1980s. But I'll say again, it was pretty much the fact that the politics kept the belt off of Kerry. That's what pretty much led to Fritz Von Erich breaking away from the NWA by the mid-'80s and going independent with his promotion. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that the next time I bring up this particular segment. But it is pretty much the case with me is that when you really look at, and yeah, I'm not saying there haven't been some wrestlers who haven't didn't get treated the way they probably could have in WWE history. It disappoints me. I think they mishandled a guy like Damien Sandow, for one thing. And kind of disappoints me that Rusev hasn't been handled the way I'd like it to. But again, to say that that's only happened in WWE is, it's just not true when you really look at the history of it.
Oh, no. It's always, there was a lot of people who got screwed over, a lot of people who didn't get the opportunities, as it were. I mean, I have people who, who said that, Ronnie Garvin, should have had a longer run with the World Championship.
Heck, if anything else, we need to remember that, the reason Vince McMahon was able to rise the WWF to power was because Hulk Hogan was getting screwed over in the AWA. And Vince basically offered him a lot of money and say, hey, you come to work for me, you're going to be the champion. And he rode that horse throughout at least the entire 1980s.
Yeah, that was right there. And everyone seems to forget that. It's that if you mishandle talent, and the AWA had a ton of talent, and that came through, and when they messed up a Hogan, and there it is. It just that's what the story is. So if you don't really capitalize, and for better or worse, you see the old wrestling, old stuff guys and gals and people behind the scenes. Sometimes you capitalize on things, sometimes you don't. The train comes in, and sometimes people miss the train, and that that's been a part of not just wrestling, but also life in general.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely going to talk more about this, I think, in another couple of months. I've got a couple of other matches definitely we'll hope to talk about in a later time period. I do hope the next time we're up, especially if John is going to be able to make it, hope he's doing good in his current job. He got on call, and I understand that. But hopefully next time I can allow John to bring back his segment, How Would You Book This? We'll hopefully he'll have a good one for us. In the meantime, I guess it's time to move on to previewing this next WWE pay-per-view Clash of Champions, and I do want to apologize in advance. This is the one I had missed a number of WWE shows in the last few weeks, and not just because I just didn't want to, I just had other things. I mean, I went to some hockey games, basketball games, and whatnot that was going on at this time, but it is the Clash of Champions pay-per-view. It's a SmackDown. Not all of these are championship matches, though, unfortunately, but obviously, what I've got here for the match card, we're starting off with, of course, the match the opening card feud everyone seemed to be wanting to happen for so long. It's Zack Ryder against Mojo Rawley, as those two finally did break up and are going to blows with one another. And even I will admit, what they plan to do with Mojo, I'll admit that this probably is kind of a head scratcher. They didn't know what they were going to do with Mojo Rawley after having him win the WrestleMania Battle Royale.
Well, I already did a preview on my podcast, to plug. But I say this, I don't really care much for kickoff matches, because I always say this. If it was important, and this big feud was important, it will be on the main show. But if you want my prediction, I have Mojo winning, because I honestly think the Zack Ryder train has been, let's be honest, derailed and forgotten about. And there's more money and more, things with maybe as a heel Mojo Rawley. So maybe, that could be interesting. So maybe they could do something.
Absolutely. I do think that, I think for whatever reason now, if they're turning Rawley heel, they might have some reason to push him with. So I'm going to go with the fact, I'm going to suggest that Rawley is going to win this. At the very least, I think this probably is, at least deserves of being a pre-show match, because I think the most people who want it, who really care about it, are the people who are going to watch the pre-show anyway. So it might be the best possible situation for it to be at this time. Next up is a tag team match of Breezango finally getting back into the ring after hosting the incredibly awesome Fashion Files for so long. I'm not saying that sarcastically. That's one of the best entertainment SmackDown has going for it right now. But they're finally getting back in the ring up against the repackaged Bludgeon Brothers, the former members of the Wyatt family. And I get the feeling this is probably another one that's going to put the Bludgeon Brothers over, because I definitely think they want to push them pretty quickly now.
Yeah, and they got really positive reactions too. So I don't know why they're pushing them as villains or heels, because they are getting a lot of positive reactions. So I would not be surprised if Bazongo probably loses here, but I think it's going to be their Bludgeon Brothers will be going after the tag team championships probably next. So they will probably be facing the tag team champions at the Royal Rumble.
We'll get into the tag team championships in just a bit. Up next, of course, is a triple threat match for the United States Championship. Baron Corbin against Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler. This is a bit of I almost want to call this a trap match, so to speak, is the term that comes to it. I personally would love to see the Glorious One become United States Champion, but part of me gets to thinking that they just might have Dolph win this. That this might be he might have been put into this match and being thrown in to try to help appease him with his supposed frustration over how his character's been handled these last few months, if that makes possible sense.
Well, no, I think he's going to take the pinfall in the match, actually. And I see Baron Corbin pick up the victory.
Well, wait and see on that. Like I said, I do think they're kind of in a very precarious position with Dolph Ziggler right now. I think that they don't know really what. I guess you might not know what to do with him. Maybe he has run his course. He's been in WWE for a long time. Let's face it that much. And it might be just the fact that they're starting to run out of ideas for him. Unfortunately, wait and see. Like I said, I just have this very gut feeling in mind that they just might find a way to put it back on him. We'll wait and see what happens. But then we have another triple threat match. This one for the tag team championships on SmackDown. Actually, it's a fatal four-way. Now that I double check it, it's because the Usos against the New Day, but now they're going up against Rusev and Aiden English, and then against Chad Gable and Shelton Benjamin. Okay, I'm not sure that's going to run off the tongue as much as the world's greatest tag team, but this one I'm really curious about, because this is the one where, the safe bet would be either keep it on the Usos or put it back on the New Day, but part of me wonders if they might. I don't think they're gonna give it to Gable and Benjamin as of right now. I don't really see that, but it makes me wonder if they might again try to, in some way, to finally try to resurrect Rusev somewhat. They might put the belts on Rusev and Aiden English. So the two guys again they're struggling to do something with, and maybe putting them as a team and making them champions might be a last-ditch effort to try and get something out of them. If anything, if they are actually selling these Rusev Day t-shirts, it looks like they might be trying to do something with him.
Oh, yeah. I want to see them win, but I don't see them doing that. I think it's going to be, I think the Usos will retain, and then, honestly, they will lose the tag team titles to the Bludgeon Brothers. And if any justice in that, they'll actually have a tag team championship match at WrestleMania. Because Lord knows they deserve it.
Well, that's a very possible situation. I will give you that much. It would not surprise me at all if that's what's going to happen. Up next, we deviate once again from the championship matches. Well, there's something maybe bigger than a championship supposedly up for grabs in this match, because it's Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus Shinsuke Nakamura and Randy Orton, with basically Owens and Zayn's job on the line, with both Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon as guest referees. And I think, of course, all the word on the web right now is everyone's saying this is basically setting up for a Shane McMahon-Daniel Bryan feud, with the most likely scenario being that Bryan, perhaps in some way, helps KO and Zayn win and retain their jobs.
Well, that's going to be an interesting little tidbit. I see that as well. I think it will be a very fun and engaging match. I think the teams will probably have some decent chemistry. And I see Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn pick up the victory, and there will be dissension between Shane and Daniel Bryan, or that type of stuff. And heck, what called me crazy? I think part of me wishes it was Shane McMahon who calls the pin here, but it won't be. But I think it'll be Daniel Bryan, and then Shane McMahon, who supposedly is like, oh, I don't have any issues with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, but yet putting himself into this match, putting him in these situations with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. So it does show the hypocrisy of Shane McMahon. So but they get no one's got to boost Shane McMahon.
I do want to point this thing out because in just for anyone who's hoping that there's going to be a Shane versus Daniel feud coming out of this in the hopes that Bryan's finally going to get back into action, I'm reading this off of the Bleacher Report article from which I got the card list that says the Wrestling Observer newsletter is suggesting that a Bryan versus McMahon match is not in the works, that Bryan has still not been medically cleared to fight. I'm taking that alone with a grain of salt because the Wrestling Observer's track record this past month has been piss poor to say the least. I mean, There has been so much talk about how just basically you want to talk about some guy who's clinging on to dear life and not realizing that the world has passed him by. It's Dave Meltzer. I'm just getting that off of my chest right now.
That dude is the definition of trust but verify. But don't trust but double verify.
I mean, like maybe once long ago, he was a legitimate source for wrestling news. But like I said, I pointed this out. The guy has no more friends and real connections in WWE right now. He's pulling stories out of his butt. Number one being that whole story that supposedly the Finn Balor Lesnar match has been scrapped because Vince didn't think Balor was over. It's been reported now Meltzer completely made that thing up. Said.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's why I just can't trust the guy anymore. So I'm not saying it's impossible that Bryan won't ever be medically cleared, but if he's saying he's not, I'm waiting seeing on that. Even that possibility. Let's move on to probably, I guess, once again, the one thing that I've got some interest in, Charlotte Flair versus Natalya for the Women's Championship in a lumberjack match. The unfortunate thing here that I have is, for the moment, I get the feeling this is one match where the title itself is kind of secondary, because this is clearly, because of the fact that they made it a lumberjack match, the purpose of this is mainly to sell all this new talent that they suddenly up and called up from NXT. And just trying to remember who were the NXT ladies that made it onto SmackDown in this time. Because, like I said, I apologize for not really watching so far, but I know that Paige came back to Raw, and with the other NXT, with Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott, I believe.
Yeah, she had to come back to Raw because it's her house.
Yeah, and look, I'll say this much: we're talking SmackDown right now, but I want to talk Raw for a moment. Look, I have been one of Paige's biggest critics for years now, from the moment she got called up to Raw from the beginning, because I thought it was very poorly handled that they tried to sell her as being the anti-diva still, when AJ Lee had been doing that on Raw already, and then having her take the belt off of AJ her first night on Raw. I think that was poorly handled. That having been said, I think it's really something special that she's gone through a lot of problems, personal. Some might have been her doing, some might not have. Not here to discuss that, but just the fact that it really does seem like, one, she wants to turn it around and go back to focusing on what she does best. And I don't think enough credit is being given to the fact that WWE was willing to give her that opportunity back. I mean, they could have cut her loose like they cut Alberto loose, or rather, I guess it was TNA that cut him loose, actually, for the most part. But obviously, she still has friends there, because I was reading this one post by some women's wrestling fan group on Facebook that that had an interview with Paige. She had been, and she says that when on that first night that she came back, that basically the person who took her aside and told her, "This is your house, you can do this," the person who gave her that confidence was Stephanie McMahon. That we try to, and I'm not saying the McMahons are perfect angels. I'm not saying they haven't had problems. But for people who think that they're the absolute antichrist of professional wrestling, that it's not like there haven't been some good things they've done. That there are people they've looked out for, that they've stood up for. They've given new opportunities to. The Ric Flairs, the Michael Hayes, sadly, even though they keep flourishing in a way, the Scott Halls, who unfortunately I heard relapsed once again, which is very unfortunate to hear. So, look, I do wish Paige the best in this new attempt. But getting back to it, I'm trying to remember, and I'm kind of just rambling here because I'm struggling to remember who were the NXT ladies that made it onto SmackDown. That I think is pretty much going to be obviously going to interfere in this match, I think, in some way, shape, or form. And I keep saying this because one of these days I've got to be right eventually, that maybe this is the night that Carmella finally cashes in some form or fashion. Because you want to talk about someone they don't know what to do with anymore, which is really sad. It's Carmella, I think. That I just think more and more that their original intent was for her to win the belt on the night of Money in the Bank, and they pushed the panic button because of all the online backlash immediately from how that Money in the Bank match ended, and they don't know where to go now. Especially now that Ellsworth has parted ways with the company. And she's the one who's probably in limbo more than just about anyone else.
It's just the way both this is the Money in the Bank situation. This is the reason why it's the whole being everything but by an old guy who just doesn't know what he's doing sometimes. It's Vince McMahon. He's just really you don't know what it's going to do. So it's a frustrating situation, and hopefully they do something. And my hope is, after all the craziness and everything like that, is that she finally cashes in and they just move on from, and hopefully Natalya, because I like Natalya, but she, I think it's time for her to get like her, moment in the WWE Hall of Fame and just,
She definitely has a place in WWE right now. She's been a great mentor for a lot of these ladies. So I do think, I don't know sure what the purpose was of putting the belt on her earlier, and I think that probably was a backlash of them not knowing what to do with Carmella. I would not be surprised if, one, Carmella cashes in here, and two, then establishes herself as like a leader of this new NXT group of ladies that are that have crashed the party more or less on SmackDown. But I guess now we can move on to the main event: AJ Styles versus Jinder Mahal. Obviously, a few weeks ago, people probably would have were probably afraid that this was when Mahal might retain the belt. But upon now this news that Mahal actually put over Triple H in a match in his home country in India, and started getting people to believe that the Jinder Mahal experiment may finally be over. So,
which is a shame. I think it would have been interesting. I think, honestly, I wanted to see, in my perfect way of booking and everything else, is I would have had him fight against Lesnar and such. Have him in the home spots, because that would have been interesting, an interesting match. And then you have AJ Styles, have him lead Team SmackDown. I know it's old guy SmackDown and everything else. But have him lead the team to an almost victory. Him and Shane wrap that storyline up, and bam, thanks to the interference of Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, and you can have both of them fight. At Night of Champions and such. Give have Randy Orton versus Randy Orton and Sensei in a triple threat match with Jinder Mahal. Then after that, when they finish, then at the Royal Rumble, to have AJ Styles face him and win the championship there.
Well,
have it
obviously, probably one of the big reasons why I think they made the title switch when they did was because supposedly Lesnar did not want to face Mahal at Survivor Series. After all, it's anybody's guess as to how much truth there actually is in that. But you know what? If I will say this, I didn't hate Mahal as champion. I thought it was a good way of trying to build up a new character. They did as best as possible. But if they took the belt off him for anybody else, at least I think they probably made the right decision with AJ Styles, because the guy clearly is very much over. I mean, I'm really surprised the guy's built at under 220, because he just looks bigger than that, to be perfectly honest. I think he does carry himself as being someone who is capable of being champion, at least in the short term, until they can finally get some more younger talent and someone who can be maybe the next John Cena. So, yeah, I think more than anything else, we're probably going to see AJ retaining the title this Sunday.
I see that, and also I want to say Drew McIntyre going back, getting up in the WWE, coming up there, but since he got hurt, that's gonna stop his his rise. But I do see someone like who's it? That big dude down there in the NXT. That big. God dang it. Let's see. Okay. Because I know. Let's see. It was, you know what I'm talking about.
Maybe I was at the War Games event, so I probably should know. So I mean,
Lars Sullivan, that dude, bring him up and actually have him, challenge the championship and stuff like that, because that would be something interesting.
Definitely, it's a possibility. They do seem to be calling up talent here more than anything else. Although Ember Moon and the Perfect Couple are still down there. Unfortunately, we probably have done more to get called up, in my view, than just anybody else. Although Ember Moon,
I do see maybe the Undisputed Era getting called up soon, but that's still not stuff. But you never know, to challenge AJ or challenge Shinsuke Nakamura, which supposedly people are saying that he might win the
Royal Rumble.
Royal Rumble. But who knows? We don't know anything about that yet. So there is, I think Jinder Mahal, racist from one side, was not the worst WWE champion ever.
No.
No.
At the very least, it got people talking. So maybe that's probably what they needed more than anything else. Definitely, once again, want to thank my friend and colleague and host of both of Last Reviewer Standing and the DukeCT Lounge, Charles Thomas, for joining us once more on this thing. Sorry that I had to interrupt your live stream and get this done on such short notice, but it's appreciated, really appreciated, more than anything else. We could find a way to keep this train going, even if we probably don't have no idea where we're headed on it, unfortunately. But
that's what it is in life, man. You just gotta hope, just gotta hopefully pick the right spot. Hey, you gotta get on the train when it's moving, or hey, you gotta find a way to pick up the next one. You gotta key on the right moments,
So everyone who's listening to this, definitely check out the DukeCT Lounge as well in his next episodes. And also, like I said, this Monday should be the release of the next TV trash for everyone, when we review Grumpy Cat's Worst Christmas Ever. That's currently already available to all Patreon supporters of Rowdy C Productions. Thankfully, Patreon got its problems taken care of, and I got out of it without losing too many followers, so that I'm considering that my Christmas gift automatically, and I'm just trying to give you guys the gift back with what I can provide. This Christmas will be the public release of the next episode of Rowdy and Friends. It will be released to Patreon supporters within the next few days as well. Hopefully, John will be able to come back next time. Glad he got this thing started up. Definitely would love to have him back as soon as possible. Hopefully he enjoys listening to this at the very least. We'll be back for the next WWE pay-per-view. Remember what that is, by the way?
The next one is the Royal Rumble.
That's the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. So it's going to be a bit of a time, but we'll definitely some time off. Maybe we'll find a way to throw one in here in between for one reason or another, if possible. But whatever the next one is, we'll be here and we'll be informing you about it. And until next time, stay rowdy, my friends.
Backstreet Atlanta, yeah. Backstreet in the